So good evening. I guess it is technically because it's 5 o'clock. I can't tell you how excited I am to have you all in here. This is my first thing that I've hosted, and I might tear up, since March of 2020. So you all are so special. So please give yourselves a round of applause for being here. It's so wonderful, and it's the 5th year. I have always looked forward to this evening and to be able to see you all in person, to be able to share at this special moment, because I come with a pen and paper because I learned from you all, and I learned from this event. And it's the first time I've met our new DA, and with my tech guy. We haven't seen each other since March, as you saw the spontaneous hug. Haven't seen him since March of 2020, so it's just wonderful to be able to be back together again. See Michelle, Shauna, folks who've been with this from the beginning, so thank you. So you're wondering, who, can I curse in here? Is this being recorded? You're wondering, who is this up here talking about welcome? We don't know who you are. I cut the curse word out. So good evening. My name is Carol Mason, because you know we got to represent. I can't be telling the young folks how to, I got to teach them to do it the proper way. So anyway, my name is Carol Mason. I am the president of John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Not as refined as you might have expected, but I'm real. And so as I've mentioned, it is a pleasure to be here for this graduation ceremony. And when you talk about the graduation, it's not just, it's everybody is graduating from this program because we all learn together. And as I said, I can't wait to see what ideas I am going to borrow from you all as we build out our work about the future of public safety. Because the things that you talk about in terms of improving our whole criminal legal system are things we all need to hear and we take in and borrow. And I do give attribution when I borrow your work, but it is helpful and so important for us to have your learning. So as I mentioned, this is the 5th graduation that we've had the pleasure of hosting here at John Jay. And if I sound out of breath, it's because it's hard to breathe and talk. So I'm learning new skills. So just please laugh, bear with me. And I keep my mask on just so that you understand is there are other people that I'm close to that I need to protect who can't be vaccinated. And so to be respectful for them, I've got to make sure that I don't bring something to them. So thank you for understanding that why I continue to wear the mask. But so I'm so happy to meet our new district attorney, Alvin Bragg. So please join me in thanking him and welcoming him, because those of you who've been through transitions know that things don't have to continue. And it's because of your success and the commitment of all of you that it does continue to succeed, and he continues to support this. So thank you for continuing to support this important program that is in line with the goals that we all share and that you particularly champion, which is to keep our community safer by ensuring that our whole criminal justice system, our whole criminal legal system, I go in back and forth depending on the context with that word, because our system is not always just. And we're trying to make it just, and the input that you give us will help us make it that way. And I want to thank Luis Morales for your work on Inside Criminal Justice on behalf of the Manhattan DA's office. The past 2 years have shown us that connection and proximity are critical to success. And you all have managed to keep this program going through COVID, and we are grateful that with this particular graduating class, that we get to celebrate you all in person. And we know how important it is, and you'll hear this from the folks talking, from the prosecutors themselves, to understand and learn from those who are, and I use this word intentionally, in the custody and care of our correctional system. Because I think sometimes we forget that people who are in our correctional systems are in our custody and care, and we're supposed to help make sure that when you return to your families, that we are supporting your success. So that's why this program is so important. So as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to learning your ideas about how to improve this system, and congratulations to the graduates. Can you guys stand up for just a minute? I know we're going to recognize you later, but can I just see who you are right now? And now I'm going to turn it over to the real person who's in charge, Luis Morales, and I hope I didn't just mess up your system up here. So thank you, Luis. Come on and take over.
Thank you so much, President Mason, for that warm welcome to John Jay. I'm Luis Morales with the Manhattan DA Academy, which is home to Inside Criminal Justice in the DA's office. Tonight's a night for celebration, but just as importantly, a night for gratitude, because it was only with the help of everyone in this room that we were able to bring Inside Criminal Justice back to Queensboro Correctional. I'd like to start by thanking our DOCS partners, both in Albany and Queensboro, for green-lighting the program 5 years ago, and again, this October for helping us return. Thank you, Commissioner Annucci, EDC Martillo, Superintendent Carrington Allen, Superintendent Breslin, Deputy Yan, and your staff who've joined us tonight. Thank you to our partners at Columbia University, Professor Downey, Skylar Rosen, Claudia Rincon, and the whole staff of the center for the academic rigor and vision that you've brought to this class. And a huge thanks to Skylar, Unique Starks, and Brianna Fuentes for providing support to our Inside classmates. You've gone so far above and beyond for this program, and the success of the cohort rests with you. Thank you to DA Bragg and the executive staff here tonight for supporting this model of education and for helping us bring the policy proposals you'll hear tonight to implementation. And a special thanks to Executive ADA Sabrina Beer, who's carved out time from her many responsibilities to co-facilitate this year's class. Thank you to John Jay and IIP, Michelle Mason, Shanna Salman, and Elisa Hadari for your help hosting the graduation and promoting the ICJ program near and far through your panels and replication guides. And thanks to all of you in the audience who've joined us, family, friends, alumni, agencies such as DSS, HRA, the Office of the Inspector General, just to name a few. But most important, thank you to the graduates who took a chance on the class and took a chance on each other. It's thanks to you that after 2 years from our last cohort, 6 ADAs and 6 incarcerated individuals once again came together in a classroom at Queensboro Correctional for heartfelt discussions about the criminal justice system and embarked on a journey of personal change and systemic change. Tonight you will hear their vision for a fairer system, which was forged from their lived experiences and developed in that special classroom. These graduates overcame socially imposed boundaries and social distancing, and we're grateful for that. These students are the people closest to the problems, and they're the people most likely to have the solutions. Before we hear those proposals, I'm pleased to introduce DA Bragg, who has provided critical support for us to continue this work and brings a shared vision of safe communities and an equitable criminal justice system. Thank you again for joining us tonight.
I've been waiting for this all day. So happy to be here. Thanks, Luis, for the introduction. Thanks to President Mason. You gotta love an event where the president of the school starts by saying, "Are we allowed to curse?" So we met by Zoom and by phone, and the realness comes through in those mediums, but to see you in person and to see your leadership on display, it's great. So it's a privilege. Thanks for all that you do on this program and so much other great work. To our graduates, That's right. That's right. Do it again. Yeah. So great to see you. Really looking forward to the presentation, so I'm going to be very brief. But this collaboration is so fundamentally important. I think about, I've been a lawyer for about 20 years, learned a fair amount in the classroom and in the courtroom, but have learned so much more from interacting with the loved ones in my life who've been directly impacted. So, I've done a bail argument as a defense lawyer, done one as a prosecutor, but posting bail, I learned so much more about the system when I posted bail for a loved one. Or I've done reentry programs, but when I had a loved one come home, live on my couch for a year, and observe the challenges, looking into the eyes of a loved one, getting up, looking for work, 100 cases couldn't replace that. So the collaboration, the work that you're doing, and then the product that I'm looking forward to hearing about. So I salute you. I salute those from Danny who've taken the time to learn and do this. It's so much a part of what we do. It's fundamental to be out and about and learning from those directly impacted, and something we want to do even more of. So when y'all say, thanks to me for continuing this, that's like a no-brainer. This is fundamental to what we should be doing. And thanks to our professors. I told Sabrina I was going to call her professor, so Professor Beer. And it is just really an honor to join you in this. And I just would say, I don't want to steal anyone's thunder, but I hear one of the presentations is on ATI. And we've got Shireen Crawford, who is leading our ATI work, and she's an IIP alum, so I want to thank IIP. And we're really scaling that up in our office. Earlier diversion, diversion that's going to connect to programming, measuring the efficacy of it. And so we are really, really excited to hear all of the proposals, but in particular, we may be stealing some ideas from that one. So congratulations to all. Thanks for having us, and here's to many, many more years of great collaborations like this. Thanks.
So this is an awesome occasion, as always. I think this is the 7th cohort of Inside Criminal Justice, and it's been just a terrific occasion every time. This time we have 6 graduates who are on their way home from Queensborough and 6 ADAs, and what really characterized this group was thanks to Alvin, who works with us at the Centre for Justice, who came in to try and convince the guys from Queensborough that this wouldn't be like the end of them, to come into the room with ADAs. He got them talking, they never shut up. So I think that they gave the ADAs more than a run for their money. From my point of view, what's the greatest testimony that anybody can give to this course and why it's so important is that my students from Sing Sing now all want to come home through Queensborough so that they can take this course and tell prosecutors and the criminal justice system in general what they should be doing to improve the system. We have a lot of people to thank, so I'm not going to do that, but I do want to single out 2 people who were in the first cohort. JT, who's now he's here, and was our partner in starting it off, and is now a student in the law school at Yale, and beside him is Jarrell Daniels, who was a graduate of the first cohort and is about to graduate, I hope, Dean Rosenmetch, from the School of General Studies at Columbia. So big clap out for the School of General Studies. And making his way then to law school. So Jarrell has worked with us at the centre ever since, and our lives have never been the same. What's also so great about the Inside Criminal Justice is that it actually has changed the system. We have, thanks to Superintendent Breslin, the first computer and of course the Inside Criminal Justice students that came up with the idea, the first computer center in a prison in New York State that has internet access. So that was a hugely important step forward, and we hope it'll be used in all of the different prisons, because people who are incarcerated need to come home knowing how to use tech, and having been able to do things like sign on for benefits beforehand. And this was another thing that came out of the Inside Criminal Justice. It actually, Jay Holder, who's here, worked with his colleagues who are also here from HRA to ensure people can have benefits, signed up for benefits, and sign up for the things that they need when they come home, before they come home. So great things are happening. I'm glad that we've already got the endorsement of the ATI programs that are going to be proposed by the DA and Shireen, our colleague. So let me, with this, turn you over to Sabrina, who was my co-teacher in the course. And it was a wonderful opportunity to co-teach with you and come up and give your speech. Thank you.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. So I wanted to reiterate everyone's thanks to everyone, because this couldn't have happened without so many moving parts. And so I'm so thankful to have been a part of that. I'm also a little thankful to the Omicron variant for subsiding long enough that we could be here in person, because I think it's a really special event, and I'm excited to be here with all of you. For those of you who don't know me, hi. I am Sabrina Beer. I'm an assistant district attorney at the Manhattan DA's office. And while I am not like Geraldine, the brilliant mind behind Inside Criminal Justice, along with Lucy Lang, I was smart enough to take the class in 2019 and to convince Luis Morales to let me help teach the first class since COVID. And I am so thankful that I got to do those things, because I really believe that the perspectives and the conversations that happen in this class are so important, and it is my greatest hope that they continue not only with our office but everywhere, because I really do think that they are that important. One of my favorite things about the class is watching the transition from class 1 to the graduation here today, because in class 1 you put a group of prosecutors, people who put people in prison, into a room of people who are serving prison sentences. And so naturally, there are a lot of feelings and opinions, and I think everyone kind of goes into it and has this question of, how are we ever going to get on the same page? And it's a good question. But then, as you'll see here at the graduation today, it happens. The groups form, and everyone talks about their policy projects that they agree on together, and they get to present it to people like you who have the actual ability to make it happen. And it's just such an incredible thing. And as Geraldine alluded, the very special thing about this class, from day one, even in that awkward class, it seemed to me that even though there were a lot of opinions and a lot of feelings, nobody seemed particularly shy to share those. And the conversation would not stop flowing, so much so that basically at the end of every class, they pretty much had to kick us out because we wouldn't stop talking. And so, in the spirit of making sure that everybody has enough time to say what they need to say today, I am going to stop talking, so that you have time to hear from the people who are doing the real work and who deserve all of our attention today. And will you join me in welcoming our next speaker, Executive Deputy Commissioner Dan Martillo.
Thank you. Good evening, all. It's my honor to be here tonight representing Acting Commissioner Annucci at tonight's graduation. Congratulations to the graduates. Tremendous program. Looking forward to hearing about your projects and your positions and learning from it. Commissioner always talks about, as executives within the department, it's important for us to make sure that we're putting the face and a name on incarcerated individuals. So when he was presented with starting this program, it was a no-brainer, right? Bringing in people from very different perspectives, different backgrounds is an opportunity for us to learn from one another. And I think as we go through this program, and as we'll hear tonight, we learn from each other's experiences, each other's struggles, and each other's successes. We certainly couldn't do the work without the partnership that we heard here tonight from the president of John Jay, Danny, the DA's office, and we really appreciate that partnership and looking forward to moving forward and keeping this going for a long time coming. We appreciate your ongoing commitment to this program, and again, I wish you all the success, and I look forward to hearing from you tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have Unique Starks to talk about some new additions to the program and the fantastic work that they've been doing.
So, hi everybody, my name is Unique C. Starks. I'm a social worker at the Center for Justice. And
hi everyone. Oh, sorry. Hi everyone, I'm Brianna Fuentes. I'm a student at John Jay, and I am a social work intern at Columbia.
so over the last 4 months, I had the great opportunity to work with Maurice, Stanley, Calvin, Jermaine, Jamar, and Leon. This experience has been super impactful. Like, I've been doing this work for 7 years as a social worker, but this is the first time I really got to learn so much, and I was hands-on with the process. And I will say I've grown so much in this role than I ever have before. So first I would like to start with sorry, I'm a little nervous. So have you ever gone 45 days without knowing where your next meal is gonna come from? So a program and an initiative and an innovation that has been super impactful in my work, the National Executive Council and the Department of Social Services partnered together to create an initiative where when folks come home for incarceration, they have money, they have food. They don't have to wonder where food is gonna come from. They don't have to wonder where money is gonna come from. So when I sit down and I'm like, okay, you have this number and there's a card with $400 on it in food, that lessens the gap, that lessens disparity, and there's more opportunity where we don't have to figure out how will we eat, because that's a real problem, right? And that's part of the reentry work that I got to learn from. Another part is the Justice Ambassadors Youth Council. It's created by a former ICJ graduate, Jarrell Daniels, and I feel like in doing the work, the people closest to it should be part of the solution. So what Justice Ambassadors did was it provides life skills, but not only life skills, it provides mentorship. So not only do you get taught certain skills about what is it like to be a man in society, what is it like to be a Black man in society, how do you set goals that are meaningful to you and you have supportive networks to achieve them. Jarrell not only teaches these skills, but he holds your hand. Night or day, he's available. And that's a model that I've been able to model by both Geraldine, Jarrell, and Claudia that have guided me in doing this work. It's not just I'm going to teach you something, but I'm going to hold your hand and we're going to do this together. And that has been super impactful in the process. Another thing I would like to talk about is the center. At the center, working with Jermaine, working with Jamar, working with Calvin, working with Maurice and Stanley, creating a personal plan that has been super geared to what they want to do. It's no blueprint. It's not you must go to school, you must get a job, you must get this. It's what do you want to do and how do we help you achieve it? And that's what reentry looks like at the center. So it's important to have these safety networks. It's important to have someone you can call in crises, because we're getting reacclimated to what does it look like to be back in society? What does it look like to reacclimate with your family and friends? You're not the same person you were when you went inside. So like really doing this work has shown me what does it look like to really show up, but not show up based on what I think you should have, but you're teaching me how to do the work. You're teaching me how to show up every day. And I'm grateful to be able to have partnered with you all and be learning and growing. You know, I was telling Maurice before before this speech, don't be nervous, and I'm up here shaking in my boots. So like, it's like you get to learn every single day working with them, and I'm grateful for that opportunity.
When it comes to the Center for Justice, there's one thing that I can say that the center strives to help individuals reach their dreams. Every day we were graced with the presence of Jamar, Jermaine, Calvin, Maurice, Stanley, and Leon, in which we are glad to celebrate them today and hear more about the proposal that they have been working on. The fact that they had so much happening in their lives post-release and committed to ICJ post-release indicates that the impact of ICJ had on them and the support that was provided post-release. They spent countless hours researching their topics. I'm sorry. Whew. Sorry. Okay. And the support that was provided post-release. They spent countless hours researching their topics and sharing the most vulnerable things that they've experienced. Every week, I looked forward to the meetings where I was able to connect and understand each of them. Whether it be assistance with housing, employment, school, or something else, each of these men presented grace and determination. I've been introduced to the intelligence, determinations, and perseverance they each have. I have learned from them just as much as they have learned from the center. Watching them bloom into who they are now has been the best journey.
So we would like to finish. So thank you to everyone. Thank you to Louis, who we've partnered with, Docs, DA Bragg for making this happen, Lucy Lang for creating this program, to all the participants and the ADAs who have spent countless hours working on these projects and leaning with vulnerability. We've brought so many smiles into this room. We brought so much light and so much inspiration. So as we close out, I would like to leave you all with this quote from the great Angela Davis. The idea of freedom is inspiring, but what does it mean if you are free in a political sense but have no food? What's that? The freedom to starve.
Thank you to all of our speakers, and now what we've all been waiting for, the policy proposal presentations. We'll start with due process and the grievance and disciplinary process.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good evening. So I just want to give you a little sense of what you can expect over the next few minutes. We are presenting some thoughts on improving the due process, what do you call it again? The due process within the grievance and disciplinary systems. This is a little bit of a sense of what we're going to do here. We're going to talk about specifically about how our experience in the class led us to where we landed in terms of both choosing the topic for our presentation and also the substance of it. And you'll see we will talk about each of those separately, the grievance system and the disciplinary systems. And you will, of course, be hearing from the very previously incarcerated individuals who inspired this this proposal and worked and developed it jointly with us. We have Jermaine Rattery, Stanley Mejia, and unfortunately we are not joined by Leon Walters, but he was also a key player in this operation. I do want to say that we discovered along the way that the issue of due process and the grievance disciplinary system raises a lot of very complicated legal, moral, and practical issues, and we were not able to solve them all in the course of this project. But we do think that we have come up with some ideas that can serve as a sort of a jumping off point for further reflection on how that can be improved. And with that, actually, before I turn the mic over to Reg, we also want to use this as an opportunity to make our own thank yous and show our appreciation. First of all, Reg and I have to acknowledge that we could not have done this without the assistance of Aaron Poltman, who was an intern in the Police Accountability Unit, and we were drowning, and he was a key player in helping us put the slideshow together and also doing legal research for us. So I don't want to forget to give him a shout out. But obviously we also want to reiterate the appreciation that has already been expressed with regard to Professor Downey, with Skylar, Unique, Brianna, just did amazing work to make this whole program happen. Obviously Sabrina and Luis as well, and our colleagues in the class who we would not have gotten where we got, either with regard to this project or just our elevated understanding of some of the issues here without their assistance. But of course, at the end of the day, we are most grateful to our colleagues from the Queensborough campus, who we learned a great deal from, and also I think we developed like a real connection with. So we will, I want to really express on behalf of me and Reg how much we appreciate that opportunity. Reg?
I'm just going to walk through the course. I mean, you have to understand, it was 6 weeks at night with our gentlemen, and we did a lot of reading and a lot of kind of understanding what is actually happening in the criminal justice system. So we started off, this is week 1 through 6. And through that process, we had to figure out, well, what are we going to bring to everyone? What's the policy we're going to come up with? And, you know, the first session was just getting on the same page, but the ones that really hit us were these sessions. Week 2, we talked about the prisons in Norway. And in Norway, you see some items here that are planned. This is all happening in their prison, right? These items here that are used for cutlery, cooking, et cetera, would be things that are banned inside of our facilities. And so when we got to this portion, we thought, well, maybe we can do, you know, arts and craft or add in something about mental health. And the guys were like, no, we got a long way to go before we can get to this. But it gave us a sense of where we can go, what could happen in prisons. Then we got to what it's like to be inside. And this section was particularly helpful, hearing the story of a person that had been convicted of murder and how he transformed in this process inside, but that his deeds were always following him. And then we heard that from our colleagues, that even inside, though they've already been convicted of a crime, they've come to terms with that, it doesn't leave them. It stays with them the entire time. And even inside, they're not feeling like they have a voice or ability to be seen as human beings, right? And this section, we got into that conversation. And then I think the most crucial for us was reading this piece, Mr. Frankel, about his time in internment camps. And that the humanity that is lost when one is in prison is hard to capture, but that story helped illuminate it. And that's what we got from our colleagues. So as we decided what is the most important thing, it was really due process. Feeling like you're a human being when you're inside, because it's already hard to be there. We could not have done that without actual stories. Now we're gonna get to some legal stuff, but first we started with the people. What were your experiences inside? What does due process look like? What happens when you have a grievance? And we were able to get a really personal narratives from all 3 folks, Leon, Stanley, and Jermaine. But today, Jermaine is going to talk about 2 specific instances for him that kind of highlighted why we chose this policy proposal. Jermaine?
How you doing? Good evening. My name is Jermaine Rattery, and I've been oppressed by the Department of Corrections. I had experiences where, you know, some of the situations were inhumane. I felt targeted. I felt like I had no power or no say-so. Doing this, how did it make me feel? Like less of a human being. And And because I've committed a crime which I was convicted of, I don't feel like I should have been subjected to that. Now, we were put in prison because we committed a crime. So this is our punishment. Anything on top of that is just unfair. You know, I've committed a crime and we're suffering from it. My family's suffering from it. You know, my mom, my kids, me, myself. So anything on top of that, it's just too much, you know? Like the officers that are put in control of us, they take advantage of their power most of the time. And who's there to see it? You guys will never know unless I tell you what's going on. So I'm here to do that. It was one incident where a weapon was planted in my locker. Green Correctional Facility, a weapon was planted in my locker. Now, at the time, I'm going to college, I'm doing programs, I'm, you know, trying to rehabilitate. Personally for me, this experience set me back from a lot of things. It set me back from even going home when I was supposed to, you know, and how did this make me feel? Again, inhumane. I felt like I had no rights. The people who I'm trying to cry out to are basically saying, listen, man, you shouldn't have had the weapon in your locker. You know, and that's unfair. When I'm crying out for help, my kid is waiting for me to come home, my parents, sisters, family members, and it was like constant. And the more I complained about it, the more the retaliation got more severe. So with the class, with the ADAs, this was kind of an enlightenment for me because I had one experience with DAs and it was not good. You understand? So to actually get to know these people are human beings and they want some of the same things I do, I got a different look at you guys. Like, we build on a personal level. You know, I've seen one of the DAs cry and that was emotional. You know, I'm like, wow, okay. You know, okay, she's a human being, like, you know, and they really like took steps to really trying to figure out how to make the system work. So this class, in a sense, is one of the greatest things I've experienced during my prison sentence. And the guys are going to ask me a few questions, and we're going to go from there.
Jermaine, you had an instance with a bathroom. Can you talk a little bit about that and take any process for that?
Okay.
Process for that?
So yeah, again, I was in a facility. I'm not going to name it, but I was in a facility where a female officer entered the bathroom where I was using it. I was sitting down, my pants were down, and she entered the bathroom into the stall adjacent from me. Now, I didn't know because I'm using the bathroom, my head's down, but she's in the stall basically watching me and didn't announce herself. It made me feel very uncomfortable. So I followed the grievance program. And with this program, it's kind of like you have to exhaust all your remedies. So you have to go through a chain of command. If you bypass one of those things, then the whole grievance that you put in is like non-existent. So there's a number of things you have to do. First, you put in the grievance about what are you grieving, who you grieving. Now, this is all supposed to be confidential, but again, in the prison system, there's a group of law enforcement, a group of officers that they have a system, they stick together. So if I write a grievance to the grievance officer, who's initially more times an officer or somebody that works around officers every day, I mean, he's not an inmate or he's not an outside entity, you know, these guys speak and it's like, hey, you know, this guy put in a grievance for you. Now you're going to be retaliated against.
And then what about the situation with the weapon? How did that turn out? What did you do with that?
Well, the situation with the weapon, after I pleaded and cried my case with the sergeant, the lieutenant, even the superintendent, that I was actually innocent and, you know, I haven't been in trouble for 2 years. I'm doing school. I'm about to go home. Why would I keep a weapon in my locker? And in a sense, inmates are not dumb, and we're not going to keep weapons in our locker. But in this situation, the liquor was placed in my locker. I was locked up before I was even found guilty. So I'm in prison, and I'm going into solitary confinement. This strips away my privileges. I can't speak to my family. I can't have proper visits. My commissary food is shut off. You know, so I'm forced to eat on their schedule. I'm forced to eat what they serve me. And I'm not even guilty yet. You guys didn't even find me guilty yet. And then when I asked for certain things to help me prove my case, I was denied it. You know, and then the thing about it, if I wasn't intelligent enough to know what to do after, then I would have continued to suffer. And that's the case with a lot of inmates. A lot of people don't know what to do. When you go into a hearing or you do anything with a grievance, it's kind of like a court procedure. You know, you kind of need a representation because you don't know, he's saying something, you like, huh? Okay, all right. And next thing you know, you're going to the box, you know, and you're suffering. And this plays a sense on your psyche, your mental condition you can get from the box because you're locked away, like, you know, and it's like you have no communication. Your family are not even going to know until, well, now they changed it a little. They're not going to until after 24 hours when you enter the box. But we're talking about a 15-minute call. Then by the time you're done explaining what happened, the call is over. So this is another form of trauma besides like the food and the conditions and then the officers, how they treat you once you're in solitary confinement. It's crazy.
Were you found guilty?
I was found guilty in the hearing, and 12 months was being recommended to be taken away from my good time. I had a 100-day shoe and loss of all my privileges for 100 days. So I had to go through the processes. I had to grieve. I had to appeal the ticket. All this was shut down, and then from there, I did Article 78 and appealed to Albany, where another proper investigation was conducted. And after that was conducted, then Albany gave me a full reversal. But I already did 3 months in the box.
Jermaine, let me ask you, did you feel that the proceeding, when you were having your grievance adjudicated, so to speak, and when you were challenging your ticket for the weapons charge, how did you feel those proceedings were? Did you feel they were fair? Did you feel they were thorough?
Oh, I was guilty from the very beginning. I was actually being advised from the hearing officer that I might as well plead guilty. And this is something that normally happens on the regular. When you go into a hearing, the sergeant, the lieutenant, whoever's conducting the hearing, they're just like, man, look, the officer did his job. Just plead guilty to this. You know, I'm going to give you this. And he just wants it to be closed out. But if you make him work, now this is a problem. Now, if you make him do what he's actually being paid for, he's going to slay you, in a sense. So it's like my hearing, you know, I'm asking the guy, well, you know, how can he randomly just search my cube? I just had a cube search last week. Now, policy and procedure it's every month, and it goes through a chain. So it comes from the captain or the watch commander. Okay, search Mr. Rattery's cube today. Now this is all being logged in a book, you know. So now I can create a paper trail if I need to go back. So it's like, okay, well, who told this officer to search my cube? And I've been having a problem with this officer. So it's just mighty ironic now that I leave my cube, and now you're saying that there's a weapon in there. Who gave you the authority to search my cube?
Jermaine, were there any, once that finding was overturned, were there any consequences for the officer who you believe sort of set you up?
Absolutely not. There was no consequences. Nothing happened. He's still in green, doing what Mr. Smith does.
And how about when you've well, either in your own experience or anyone else's experience you're familiar with, when a grievance is found to be substantiated, if it ever is, are there consequences for the officer against whom you grieved?
It's consequences for you, the griever. It's no consequence, especially if it's substantiated. But 9 times out of 10, it's going to be unsubstantiated. But if you grieve, period, that's a target on your back. Like, you might as well leave the facility because it's going to be constant and it's going to come from everywhere. You know, I mean, they're going to take your packages, you know, they're going to violate your commissary, they will give your stuff to other inmates, they will put you in the corner and physically abuse you, you know, they will, you know, make your family feel some kind of way when they come on a visit, you know, like, it's just like blatant and it's petty.
But having heard that, right, from our angle, when we heard this, said, well, this is what we have to focus on. Right? At the end of the day, we would love to have a different facility or outdoor spaces or other programming, but this seemed to be the most pressing issue. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, as Reg just mentioned, sort of based on the conversations we had with not just Jermaine, but the other two gentlemen as well, it started getting us thinking and talking about due process for incarcerated people. What due process do they have, if any? Well, you won't be surprised to hear that the due process rights, such as they are for incarcerated people, are not exactly secure. And that's largely because the touchstone that the rest of us look to, the touchstones that the rest of us look to secure our due process rights, is effectively not available to them, which are the U.S. Constitution and the New York State Constitution. This sort of captures, this is just one quote among many that sort of captures where the courts have landed with respect to due process rights and rights generally for those who've been incarcerated. Essentially, there are some, but they are strictly limited. In the case of people incarcerated within the New York State system, they are ultimately, since they cannot count on the U.S. Constitution or the New York Constitution to ensure their due process rights in these kinds of proceedings, then they have to look to whatever sort of affirmative law is out there, whatever rights are provided to that law. And it turns out that New York State has largely outsourced the decisions about what rights should be made available, what due process rights should be made available in these kinds of proceedings to those who are incarcerated, has been largely outsourced to the correctional system as a whole and to the individual correctional facilities themselves. As Jermaine was sort of referencing, and though he might have been coming at it from a different angle, there's also the burden that if one ever does want to seek some kind of redress under federal law or constitutional law, insofar as it exists, the incarcerated person has to exhaust all available remedies before they can even seek to have their rights vindicated through those mechanisms. And what it means in practice is that incarcerated individuals are very much at the mercy of the kind of the good graces of the facilities in which they're incarcerated for the protection of their due process rights in filing these grievances and in fighting a ticket. And as it turns out, it as you can hear, it makes for very little protection indeed. So we're going to talk a little bit about just specifically about the grievance system. I got you. Nice job.
Yeah,
Thank
got
you. So turning first to that, so this is a situation in which an incarcerated person feels that they have been unfairly treated, and there's a wide range of circumstances under which one can grieve, but most commonly feel they've been mistreated by a corrections officer in some way, as suggested by Jermaine's story. Now, there is some written law on how grievances are to be handled, but they're relatively limited, and on paper they don't look too bad, because there is written into the law something called the Inmate Grievance Procedure, which is applicable to all facilities in the system, under which grievances are handled by something called an Inmate Grievance Resolution Committee. And it sounds good because it's made up of 2 staff members and 2, as they say, inmate representatives and a chair, and then there's a committee. It's supposed to receive complaints and hold hearings. And that it sounds like it's sort of a kind of due process, but it turns out that these assurances are of limited value because the committee does not have the authority to adjudicate grievances in some of the most common types of grievances, and in particular the type that we were just mentioning, which is kind of harassment, acts of harassment by a corrections officer against an incarcerated individual. These category of grievances go directly to the superintendent of the facility. And while the superintendent can refer them for criminal investigation, the New York State Police Bureau of Investigation or the Office of Special Investigation, they also may elect to handle them in-house. And that is commonly the case. And the result is the kind of experience that Jermaine has described to you. Now there are, as you heard, there are there are various appeals processes, but again, very difficult to access in the end of the day. So essentially, taking into account both what we make of the current written procedures for adjudicating these grievances, as well as essentially the lived experiences of folks who have tried to actually navigate that system, the core flaws of the current system sort of readily present themselves. First of all, the current system for the adjudication of grievances is biased against complainants, and it does not safeguard them against retaliation. And even when in the rare case that a grievance is substantiated, well, let me step back, that they are not fully investigated, the grievances, and fairly investigated. And then even in those rare cases in which a grievance is substantiated, it virtually never results in meaningful consequences for the corrections officer. So we now reach what we have come up with as sort of ways to start thinking about how the system might be restructured with due process rights in mind. So it's sort of as we say in the law, is a threshold matter. It is the consensus of this group that the entire grievance system should be under the authority of officials who are completely independent of the corrections staff or the leadership and the facility administration. And it would be the job of these officials, who ideally should include trained investigators, to receive the grievances, to adjudicate each claim, and to determine the consequences. Number two, and then just as a matter of process, we also feel that the incarcerated individual, the filing process should be made as user-friendly as possible. And incarcerated individuals should be able to file their grievances directly to a grievance official, one of these independent grievance officials. And it should be as simple as possible, offering multiple channels, including a Dropbox for written complaints, a telephone hotline, and an in-person option. Incarcerated, and now we sort of close in on this issue of retaliation, because incarcerated individuals, we believe, should be permitted to file their grievances without the knowledge of the corrections staff or administration, and the existence of the grievance itself should remain a secret unless and until the investigation requires disclosure of that grievance. Retaliation of any kind against a complainant by corrections officers or administration should be strictly forbidden and should carry serious consequences. Tampering with a witness, including any act of intimidation, should likewise be strictly forbidden. Any questionable treatment of a complainant or a witness during the pendency of an investigation will be and should be presumed to constitute retaliation or tampering. And any mistreatment of a complainant or witness thereafter will constitute, after the complaint has been filed, will constitute a separate basis for an additional grievance. As far as the thoroughness and fairness of the investigation and the investigation process itself, the adjudication process should allow complainants and their witnesses an opportunity to be heard, and grievance officials should also be required to gather evidence, including video evidence, independently. And finally, when a grievance is found to be substantiated, as presumably will happen more often once the system itself has introduced greater due process into it, that there will be meaningful consequences for corrections officers who have violated the rights of the incarcerated, ranging from termination on the far end down to transfer, to suspension, additional training, demotion, or at the very least, depending at the very lowest levels, a note in the file of the individual. And with that, I turn to my colleague, Reg Green.
So I'll just jump in about the core flaws in the disciplinary system, you heard it from Jermaine, that, when you're inside, it's very difficult for you to put on your own case, to actually have witnesses show up, especially if some of those witnesses are also inside. And so, we saw that all of these systems, they're legal. I mean, there's nothing wrong about these systems. It's just we can do better. And we highlighted some of those, that even if you have a disciplinary charge that hasn't been founded, your consequences begin immediately. And so for people who have already gotten into a system through a process, very lengthy process, as we know through the judicial system, to have such a quick process inside and not having an opportunity to be heard is something that we can change. And so some of the things we're suggesting is, first, make it independent, right? The same things that you heard mirrored in the previous one. We need officials who are completely independent of the system to be involved. Why not have trained advocates, particularly law school students, could be engaged in this work? Perhaps. And then safeguards, right? Safeguards against any retaliation. Some of those things could be, if there is a disciplinary ticket and it's found to be false, that then there's a note put in the file for that officer, so that you know that there's a history of maybe these tickets not being accurate. And then, of course, limit the consequences. Good time is still good time. Instead of taking away someone's time they've earned or giving them more time, take away a privilege. Take away some other thing without taking away time, because time is the most precious thing that folks have. And last but not least, if there's a wrongfully issued ticket, it should be ameliorated at the beginning. But I'll leave it to Jermaine to kind of lead us off. Why is this policy so important? We think all these proposals would be helpful, but I think it's best to hear from them.
Hi again. So I feel like these policies are important because there are still inmates that are being affected today, well, incarcerated individuals, because that's what we like to consider ourselves. Every inmate is an individual. Every person that's incarcerated is a separate person. He was maybe raised different, grew up different, has different emotions. So to kind of try to categorize everybody as one person, I don't think that's fair. But people are still suffering, from these systems that are put into play. So I feel like if we can shine a light on that, then maybe we can make a difference. And I believe what we're doing here today is the right step in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
And I believe the next group is up.
Where's the
Good evening, everybody. My name is Maurice Perry, and if y'all don't know, I want to give y'all a little insight on the ATI program. The ATI acronym means Alternative to Incarceration, pardon me. And I overlook out of the ATI program, we want to strengthen and expand the use of the alternative to incarceration. So ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by saying growing mind is an inevitable and informative accessible. I say that in reference to the Alternative to Incarceration program. In order to make this program excel to its full potential, the knowledge on how to apply this program must be widely spread. To make a prison be a last resort in the criminal justice system, in order for programs that invoke change, it must be used in every situation, and the criteria is met for to apply the change. Due to the lack of knowledge of the alternative to incarcerated programming, it is seldomly used, which limits individuals from opportunities to rehabilitate themselves as opposed to going to prison. Because of these mishaps and misuse of the ATI program, it subjects individuals to going through a prison recidivism and codependency instead of a rehab and independency. And behind this lack of use of that program, supposed to change the recidivism rate, we're forced to deal with recurrent programs with the laws and people who make simple mistakes. In light of this misuse of the Alternative to Incarceration program, we are trying to make this program the epitome of its name. A positive perspective change is to advance and to advance us to move forward. In order for us to progressively get better, this is one of the technical elements we must change. This is one of the reasons why I advocate for the Alternative to Incarceration program. I am also someone that never was offered this opportunity for this program.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jamal Dunnan, formerly incarcerated individual. Introduction. Our goal to increase the use of ATIs in appropriate cases, including violent crimes that did not involve intentional harm caused to another person. Policy Proposals Overview. Create additional ATI programming geared specifically towards violent cases. Create and distribute a comprehensive database of all ATI programming, and appoint ATI point persons throughout Danny. Thank you.
Thank you. So in speaking with our classmates, we wanted to identify specific types of programs that would have been most useful to them to avoid kind of the pitfalls and situations that led them into their interactions with the criminal justice system. Some of those programs that we identified involved things like anger management training. These would have helped participants develop the skills that they needed to avoid future interactions with the criminal justice system. And something that we hadn't considered prior to meeting our classmates was just how much professionalism courses and resources that would help them secure better housing, better employment opportunities would have changed whether or not they ever entered into the system. And we touched on that with the new access to computers. That was a huge issue for the participants in our class. So kind of addressing the reasons that people interact with the criminal justice system rather than treating ATI as a punishment.
And then one other option that we had is the creation of an anti-violence community panel. This is going to be ideally structured something to the existing, and the name here should be changed, but the Victim Impact Panel, the VIP, which was used previously. And the idea here is to involve the community directly, whether it be through survivors, witnesses, people that have been through life experiences that are directly impacted both from an incarceral standpoint, but also those that have survived these crimes and their families, the economic impact, the medical impact, the psychological impact, all of that needs to be considered. So it's kind of like a restorative circle, as some of you may be familiar with that. That's kind of the idea here, in acknowledgement of both, backward-looking and acknowledgement of how far someone's come, but also forward-looking, preventing the future generation from repeating, I don't even want to say mistakes, but just certain pitfalls that the system may have set up certain people to fail. So the idea here is to just increasing programming for certain offenses and having survivors speak and family members of victims, but also directly including formerly incarcerated individuals. So sorry, and survivors of that system.
So our other proposal is to create an ATI database. As one of the biggest barriers I find to considering an ATI in a lot of our cases is a lack of understanding of what kinds of programming even exists. We think of this programming in this abstract way without really knowing what that entails, what it means. So, we know that we have, for substance abuse issues, we have a diversion program. And we know for mental health issues, we have the mental health treatment court. But beyond that, what kind of programming is there? What exists? And so our idea is to create a database that has all of the community partnerships and programs that we already use, and hopefully will create even more, so that everybody has an understanding of what exists. if ADAs understand what comes on the other end of offering an alternative to incarceration, what the program entails, what the process is, and can make that public safety assessment that we have to make in a lot of these cases, and understand that at the end of the case, the community and all parties involved are going to be better off. I think having that knowledge is going to be helpful for ADAs to be comfortable offering those types of programs. So not only do we want to make that database accessible to the district attorney's office, we also want to make it accessible to the defense bar and to the public, so that everybody entering in the system and part of the case is all on the same page and understands what the options are. Thank you.
We are just whipping through this. So our last proposal, which again is a very practical one, is to appoint ATI point persons in every bureau across the office. And I know DA Bragg at the outset talked about stealing our ideas, and he's already started, because as it turns out, the new administration under DA Bragg has recently announced that they will largely begin doing this by appointing dedicated I think it's unclear if the applause is for us or for DA Bragg, but I think we will take the credit since we are here. So yes, as the DA has announced, they will be appointing dedicated prosecutors from the newly created Pathways to Public Safety Division in every bureau of the Trial Division. And we think this is a very important and significant step towards reaching and achieving the DA's vision in increasing the use of non-incarceration dispositions across the office and making our office and our ADAs more proactive in identifying appropriate cases where such dispositions can be used. So, and we believe that these point persons will expand the expertise in ATI across Danny instead of just having it centralized with one bureau, and will therefore strengthen individual ADA's abilities to identify appropriate cases. It will also send an important message to ADAs and supervisors across the office that ATI is in fact a priority of this office in appropriate cases. One last thing before I turn it over to Calvin for some closing thoughts is we do suggest that the ATI point persons be placed not within just the trial division, but also within the investigation division of Danny, something that's personal to me because that is where I am. Because of the nature of our cases in the investigation division, we don't honestly have as much experience with ATIs. They don't often come first to mind in our cases. Nevertheless, we, including myself, do have cases that are now going through ATI, and we would greatly benefit from point persons, even if not as a full-time position, within the division to ensure that we fairly and consistently across the office work towards the DA's vision. So, some very final remarks from Calvin Signal.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Calvin Signal. First, I want to start an introduction. I want to thank the Center for Justice, the HRA program, the ADAs, and Ignacio Houses, which I am a part of today. There's a few problems I want to address, and the ATI correlates with my experiences today. I didn't have a quite understanding in the beginning, but breaking it down to alternative to incarceration, I can relate it to my experiences. There's problems I had before and after reentry, which explains how disruptive prison could be in a person's life. The first reason I was put into a position where, before I saw the judge, my life was at risk. Cell conditions which affect my biological safety, whether it's food, water, or hygiene. This transition affects the mind and a person's ability to think properly. The second reason, social experiences. As I was in holding awaiting a sentence before the judge, I was placed into a cell with people who were fighting, screaming, banging loud instruments, and lighting fires as my lawyer was speaking about my sentencing. This transition puts a person in fear, affecting his or her voice when speaking for their freedom, and a person should not have to attend court in a defensive mind state. My final reason comes with an experience that affected me a few weeks ago. I didn't feel safe at the shelter. I'm a justice and education scholar at Columbia University. Post-incarceration. All of my work and opportunities could have been lost in the speed of light. I was welcomed to Ignacio Housing, sponsored by Sebastian, which could not be here, but he's here with me in spirit and allowed me to have what I call a home and allowed me to speak with you. What comes to mind when you think of a bed? A comfortable sleep or rest, good dreams, support by elevation, warmth, sense of being in a home, a reward after a long day of work, something to look forward to. What comes to mind when you think of a shelter bed? The same bed that's in prison, in a prison facility. Sleepless nights, noise, sleep deprivation, assaults, relapse, and vulnerability. This is why a good ATI system is needed so that scholars don't become prisoners. The public view of homeless young adults who fear to reach out for help is the perception is true. As I was told a few days ago by one of my formerly incarcerated friends, I bumped into him in the shelter, and he said, "Yo, I feel like I'm still in prison." I feel like an ATI is needed for him right now. A good thing that happened after incarceration was the assistance of Jay Holder and Lisa's organization from the HRA program. I was signed up for SNAP benefits before I was released, and that helped me tremendously. And I had access to vouchers. I didn't have to communicate to a person of society without stuttering or not knowing what sources to use, what to say. And another experience I had was I had a situation at the shelter where I was in fear, and I didn't want to react. I went out, I cried. My parole officer wasn't there. The caseworkers didn't handle me correctly, and they didn't hold my hand as my hands was held by the system, by the sense of justice and everyone else. And for me to cry shows my growth, that I didn't want to react. I know I had more success ahead of me. And it didn't take for me to do time to bring that out. I just needed someone to talk to. A phone call saved my life a few weeks ago when I knew I had something to look forward to. And there was people in my same situation. And I thought they was telling me, yo, these people, they trying to hold us in the shelter, man. They don't want us to grow. And my perception was, yo, you just gotta be doing something with yourself. You gotta get yourself out of this situation. And as I walk with Unique, and she's helped me tremendously as I've been home. As I walked with her, I got to see that the caseworker that was handling my case didn't help me, and I felt bad because I fight for my life every day. Like sometimes I miss breakfast and lunch just to make 5 appointments at the same time. And I need to be handled with care, just like everyone else. So my perception changed when I said, oh, these guys aren't just acting wild and crazy. These people are really being turned away by people that's supposed to be in positions to help us. So ATI is needed for someone to talk to and prevent that relapse. And I appreciate everybody that came in to support me. So, today's my first graduation since high school. And I have my first keys.
And like I said, once again, we would like to give a special thank you to the Center for Justice, Unique Starks, Brianna, Geraldine, Skylar, for all that you've done for us. I don't know if y'all know this, but y'all have been so much for us, and y'all led us in the right direction. And speaking for everyone, I'm not supposed to, but God knows we really appreciate y'all. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here today. Thank you. Have a blessed day.
Bear with me, everybody. I'm a little nervous.
that after degrees.
I'm sorry. Apologize.
So now we do have a preview of what's to come, and it's going to be fantastic. As you can see, these graduates have more than earned the right to now call themselves ICJ alum. And the conferral of certificates, I'd like to invite DA Bragg, Professor Downey, Dean Metch, and Sabrina Beer up so that we can confer their certificates. We'll come this way. So I'll call names and once again, a round of applause for Inside Criminal Justice Class of 2021. Jamar Dunning. Ryan G. Reginald Green. Stanley Mejia. Kelly Moran. Mary Ellen Nacero. Maurice Perry. Jermaine Rattari. Jessica Rinaldi. Calvin Signo. And Nicholas Viorst. Congratulations again, and I'll turn it over to Maurice Perry for the closing remarks.
Come on, all the graduating class, y'all come up, everybody.
I think it's all of us.
Yeah, graduating class, yeah.
The first thing I would like to thank every individual who helped me along the way. Criminal Justice, ADAs, Legal Aid Society, Columbia University, all the people in attendance. But I speak to these particular people because if it wasn't for their criminal justice class, I would have never known that it was a program that could have kept me from going to prison. On the opposite side, I was at the end of my prison time, but there's an opportunity to keep this from happening to other people. I feel that the program that works when you have people in them, if you don't have people participate, how are you going to know the program is effective? Trial and error is a method I would use. Got a new program, try it out, make it better. If you can't fix it, get rid of it. The irony of it all is that in the ATI, people get to try something outside of jail. This is something that caused me to advocate for the Alternative to Incarceration program. Due to my experience, I'm putting myself in a position to give someone else a more suitable opportunity to stay out of prison. Thank you. So on that note, I also want to say this wasn't a part of the speech. This is a major accomplishment for us. A lot of us haven't even been home 6 months yet, 4 months, 90 days. A lot of us have made major changes from even sitting in the classroom with the ADAs, with some of the paralegals and the professors, to learn how to put certain things aside and be receptive to outside information, outside of what we normally know. The change that we're trying to implement is not just for us, because we already been through it. It's for the people to come behind us and for things to get better. So I want to definitely say to everybody, I appreciate y'all coming out, being here for us, and supporting us in this change. Geraldine, Unique, Brianna, Jarrell, and all my peers that standing here with me. And Skylar. Skylar.
Forget about Skylar.
Yeah. So, Skylar's a bomb.
This was definitely a milestone for us. Thank y'all, and I appreciate all of y'all.
Come on, go sit back.